All right, so are you ready to dive into this whole prompt engineering thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's pretty fascinating stuff, right? I mean, talking to AI, it's like you're having a conversation with another person.
It really is, and the potential it unlocks is just incredible.
Yeah. So, we all use these tools, right? ChatGPT, Gemini, but a lot of us are probably just scratching the surface.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So, for this deep dive, we've got this awesome handbook called the Prompt Engineer's Handbook.
By Dibber Brada Pruseth.
Yes, exactly. And it's packed with all these techniques to help you really get the most out of these AI tools.
It's really about understanding how to speak AI's language, how to give it the right instructions to get the results you want.
And some of these techniques have pretty cool names too, like chain of thoughts.
Yeah, chain of thoughts is a great example.
I like the sound of that already.
It falls into the first category that the handbook talks about, which is guiding AI behavior and output.
So it's not just about typing in a question, it's about crafting that question in a way that
gives the AI a roadmap.
A roadmap.
Okay.
Instead of just a destination.
Exactly. So instead of saying, what's the capital of France? You might give it more context. Like, I'm planning a trip to Europe, and I'm starting in Paris.
Mm.
What are some must-see attractions there?
So you're giving it that starting point, those extra clues to help it understand what you're really looking for.
Precisely. And the handbook is full of ways to do this, like the persona prompt.
Persona prompt. All right, what's that one all about?
Well, imagine you need the AI to analyze some financial data, but you want it to explain it in a way that you can actually understand.
Right, because sometimes it can get a little too technical.
Exactly. So you could use a persona prompt to tell the AI, hey, act like you're a seasoned financial analyst explaining this to someone who's never invested in the stock market.
So I could make it sound like it's coming from a specific expert.
Yeah, or even a specific author if you're doing creative writing. You have that control over the AI's voice and style.
That's so cool. So it's not just about the information itself.
Yeah.
It's about how that information is presented.
Exactly. And who it's being presented to.
Oh, right. Because if I'm trying to explain something complex to someone who's not an expert in that field.
There's a prompt for that, too.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, it's called the audience prompt.
Okay, so tell me about audience prompt.
Well, it's basically telling the AI who it's speaking to. So you can say something like, explain this like I'm talking to a 5-year-old.
Oh, I get it. So if I need to explain blockchain to my grandma.
You can tell the AI, explain this to someone who's never even used a computer.
That's brilliant. It's like you're setting the stage for the conversation.
Right. You're giving the AI the context it needs to communicate effectively.
This is really making me rethink how I approach AI altogether. It's not just about the question, it's about the whole setup.
Exactly. And it gets even more interesting when you start looking at techniques like think step by step and chain of thoughts.
Okay, chain of thoughts. That one really caught my attention earlier.
Yeah, this is where things get really powerful. These techniques are designed for those trickier, more complex problems.
So what kind of problems are we talking about?
Well, imagine you're asking the AI a question that requires some logical deduction or problem solving.
Okay.
With chain of thoughts, you're not just getting an answer. You're seeing the AI's thought process unfold.
Wait, so I can actually follow its logic, see how it arrived at the solution?
Yes. And that can be incredibly valuable, especially if you're trying to understand a complex issue or make an important decision.
That sounds amazing. It's like getting a glimpse into the AI's mind.
It is. And the handbook goes into detail about how to use these techniques effectively.
No, I'm really curious. So chain of thoughts helps the AI break down those complex problems.
Right. And then you've got things like semantic filter pattern, which helps you keep the AI on track.
Keep it on track. Okay, so it doesn't go off on tangents or generate irrelevant content.
Precisely.
I can see how that would be really useful.
And then there's outline expansion, which is a lifesaver if you need to create structured content like a blog post or an essay.
So I could give it a basic outline and it would fill in the details.
Exactly.
Wow, this is already blowing my mind. We've talked about giving the AI a persona, tailoring its language to the audience, and even making it think step by step.
Right.
But what about making the whole conversation smoother, more natural? Like you're actually working with a partner.
That's a great question. And it leads us perfectly into the next set of techniques, which are all about enhancing user interaction.
Okay, let's dive into that. I'm ready to make this AI feel like my trusty sidekick.
All right, let's do it. So making that AI feel like your trusty sidekick, right? Well, that's what this next part is all about. These techniques are designed to help you really enhance that user interaction and make the whole conversation smoother, more natural.
So it's less like I'm bossing the AI around and more like we're actually collaborating.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're working with a partner.
I like that. So where do we start?
Well, let's start with the cognitive verifier prompt.
Cognitive verifier.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds pretty intense.
It is pretty cool. It's basically like having a built-in fact checker for your AI.
So it's not just accepting everything it finds online, it's actually evaluating the information.
Yeah. You're essentially asking it to double-check its own work.
Which seems pretty crucial these days with all the misinformation out there.
Absolutely. And the handbook even talks about how you can train the AI to be even more critical of its own responses.
Wow. So it's like you're teaching it to be skeptical.
Right. To really question the sources and the information it's finding.
That's reassuring. Especially if I'm using AI for something important, like research or making decisions.
Exactly. You don't want to blindly trust anything, especially when it comes from the internet.
Okay, so we've got our AI fact-checking. Now, what about this few-shot prompting thing?
Few-shot prompting. This one's really interesting.
The name's a little bit cryptic.
It is, yeah. It's basically about showing the AI examples of what you want instead of just telling it.
So instead of just saying, summarize this in bullet points,
you would give it a few examples of articles with their corresponding bullet point summaries.
So it's like, this is what a good summary looks like. Now you try.
Exactly. You're setting a precedent for the AI to follow.
So it's learning by example.
Right. Handbook calls it meta-learning, and it can be super effective.
Okay, so we've got our AI fact-checking and learning from examples. What else can we do to really make this partnership work?
One technique that I find really interesting is the flipped interaction.
Flipped interaction. Now that sounds interesting.
It's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
You're flipping the script. Instead of you prompting the AI, you let the AI lead the conversation.
Wait, so the AI starts asking me questions?
Yeah. It can be really powerful, especially for brainstorming or creative tasks.
I'm not sure I see how that would work.
Well, imagine you're stuck on a writing project. You've got writer's block.
Yeah.
Instead of you just sitting there staring at a blank page, the AI starts asking you thought-provoking questions.
To get my creative juices flowing.
Exactly. It can help you get unstuck, see things from a new perspective.
Okay, now that you put it that way, I can actually see how that would be helpful.
It can be like having a brainstorming partner who never runs out of ideas.
That's a pretty cool concept. So we've got fact-checking, meta-learning, and flipped interaction. Anything else?
Oh, there's more. There's the receipt pattern.
Receipt pattern. Does that involve, like, scanning my receipts into the AI?
No. It's more like the AI giving you a receipt for your request.
Okay.
It's just basically confirming its understanding before it proceeds.
So it's like, okay, I heard you. Here's what I think you're asking. Is that right?
Exactly. It's all about clarity and avoiding misunderstandings.
Which is really important, especially for those complex tasks where one little misinterpretation could mess everything up.
Right. So the receipt pattern is a simple but effective way to make sure you and the AI are on the same page.
I like it. So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about making the conversation more natural, more collaborative. But what about making sure the information we're getting is accurate and safe?
That's a great question. And it's a crucial aspect that the handbook really emphasizes.
Okay, because as exciting as all this AI stuff is, we don't want to just get swept up in the coolness factor.
Right. We need to be responsible.
So how do we ensure we're using AI responsibly? What guidance does the handbook offer?
Well, it starts with a healthy dose of skepticism. Don't just blindly accept everything the AI tells you.
Okay, so don't treat it like it's the ultimate source of truth.
Exactly. The handbook recommends using the fact-check pattern, which is similar to the cognitive verifier, but even more focused on verifying information against reliable sources.
So it's like saying, hey, AI, don't just take this random website's word for it. Go check with some reputable sources before you tell me anything.
Exactly. You're encouraging the AI to be a more discerning researcher.
Okay, so that helps reduce the risk of spreading misinformation.
Right, because unfortunately there's a lot of that out there.
Yeah, it feels like it's everywhere these days. But even with these safeguards, I imagine there are still things to be wary of.
Absolutely. And the handbook dedicates an entire section to this called Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. Okay, what's the disclaimer all about?
It's a reminder to always double-check the AI's output before you use it for anything important.
So even with all these fancy techniques, we still need to use our own judgment.
Exactly. AI is a tool to augment our intelligence, not to replace it.
That's an important distinction. And it brings us to another crucial consideration when it comes to accuracy and safety. You were saying there's another crucial consideration when it comes to this whole accuracy and safety thing.
Yeah, you got to remember where all this information is coming from.
Okay, so the AI isn't just pulling these answers out of thin air.
Right. It's learning from these massive data sets of text and code.
And those data sets could have problems.
They can have inherent biases.
Okay, so like if the AI was mostly trained on historical texts.
Yeah, it might have some outdated views.
Oh, right, like about certain cultures or social structures.
Exactly.
So even if I'm using all the right techniques,
You still need to be aware of those potential biases,
and really look at the information with a critical eye.
especially when you're dealing with sensitive topics.
Yeah, it's not just about making sure the information is factually accurate.
Right.
It's also about making sure it's not biased or harmful.
Exactly. Responsible AI usage means using your own judgment, too.
So it's a partnership.
It is.
We can't just blindly trust the AI.
Nope. AI is a tool to help us, not to replace us.
Right. It's about augmenting our intelligence, not replacing it.
Exactly.
That's a good way to put it. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have
We talked about all these techniques to guide AI behavior.
with persona prompts.
Yeah, and chain of thoughts.
And we talked about making the conversation more natural.
Right, like with few-shot prompting and flipped interaction.
And of course, we talked about the importance of accuracy and safety.
Being aware of those biases and always double-checking the information.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but it's so fascinating.
It really is.
And this is really just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Oh, yeah. The field of prompt engineering is constantly evolving.
So there's always more to learn.
Always.
Which is why I love that the handbook ends with this call to action. Experiment directly with ChatGPT and Google Gemini.
That's the best way to learn.
It is. Take what you've learned and start playing around. See what works, see what doesn't.
And have fun with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to experiment, get creative, really push the boundaries of what's possible.
You could be writing a song with your AI partner 1 minute and analyzing complex data the next.
The possibilities are endless.
They really are.
So there you have it, folks. A crash course in prompt engineering.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Huge thanks to Debrada Prusith for writing this incredible handbook.
It's a great resource.
And to all of you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing those boundaries with AI.
See you next time.